uncomfy chairs. Yes.
Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, September 5th, 2023 special city council meeting. Now is time for a roll call and determination of quorum.
Bieberdorf. Maher.
Here.
Roberts.
Here.
Stroman.
Here.
Pettigrew. Sechrist. Lehman. Ham. Evans. Roseland. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Now is time for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now is time for the adoption of the agenda. Have a motion by Councilman Lehman, a second by, Pat Roseland, Councilman Roseland. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Now is time for general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. No items will be added to the agenda per state statute for special meetings. I don't see anybody, and I don't have any comments in front of me, so I will open and close it. We'll move on to non-public hearing items, items 1 through 3. And item 1, approve resolution 2023-076 of intent to take the statutory authorized increase in property tax revenue as part of the annual appropriation ordinance for the 2024 fiscal year. We have a motion to approve by Councilwoman Sechrist, a second by Councilman Bieberdorf, I believe. All in favor? All opposed? Motion passes. Item number 2, second reading ordinance 6580 regarding FY 2024 appropriation ordinance. If anybody wants to speak, come on in. Mr. Stroman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I have a request to add an item to the budget. I'm not sure that this was ready before the mayor prepared his budget, but there is, I'm sure many of you know, Rapid City Sports Commission, and they have a goal of enhancing opportunities for youth to engage in sports and sporting activities, both in practices, training, competition, tournaments, whatever. And I believe that that would be something that would enhance the experience for youth growing up in Rapid City. I think it would enhance our public safety, because I think some of these kids would have an opportunity to engage in constructive activity and would not be left to their own devices. I think it would substantially impact our tourism and our visitor base and the tax revenue that we achieve from non-residents of Rapid City. And in order to get this off the ground, the Sports Commission is trying to find a founding five, which is 5 entities that would pledge $25,000 per year for 5 years. And it would just be towards trying to get organized and move forward, do some fundraising, and see what we can do to enhance the opportunities for youth sports in our city. And so I'm proposing that the City of Rapid City be one of the founding 5, that we show our support to the Sports Commission, and I'm moving to have the full $125,000 allocated to that in this year's budget. And I propose, in order to give a funding source, I propose that we take $50,000 out of the mayor's budget, because there is $306,000 in the mayor's budget that says other expenses, and I think that's there must be some room in there, because it seems like rather a large number since it wasn't even there in previous years. And I was looking at the library. They have $200,000 for electronic resources. I'm proposing $25,000 be taken from that. That puts us at $75,000. And the remaining $50,000, I wanted to take $25,000 from the travel and training budget at Public Works. Currently, that budget sits at $76,500. I think that's a pretty expensive amount of money for travel and training for the Public Works Department. And I can understand that in previous years there may have been some training with some of the high-tech issues that we were dealing with, but I think that $25,000 would be easily absorbed out of that budget. And the final one is $25,000 from the government facilities, City Hall. There's $125,000 in there. I propose taking $25,000 from that and reducing it down to $100,000. And that's my motion.
Any more discussion on this? Mr. Bieberdorf.
Yeah, I think the looking at always bringing big box stores and doing things like that is admirable, but I think we're getting way behind in the sports complex and facilities in our area. When you look around, everybody else is outdoing us. So to look at off-season, spring and fall, to be able to bring some of these events in with the Rep City Sports Commission's vision, I think it's imperative for this community to be out front and leading the charge in that, especially look at how much of our revenue is driven from sales tax. So I speak in support of it.
Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to note that the $76,000 for travel and training in Public Works is not exclusively for travel. Our water and wastewater operators have to remain certified to make sure that we're in environmental compliance. A good portion of the budget that we have for training is to keep current certifications for our licensed individuals in Public Works.
Thank you. Anyone else want in the queue? Mayor, you
Am I free?
are.
Mr. Stroman, which part of the mayor's office budget did you say?
Well, there's just, as I read it, sir, there was just a line item at the bottom that said other expenses for $306,000.
Okay.
And
I believe that's where the Elevate Rapid City funds are going. As I might have to double check. So we're changing the line item for that, as well as that's 250,000, as well as we have $100,000 for the website development. So if you're scrapping the website, I mean, I those funds are allocated to certain projects, they're not just random. So fortunately, I don't have. You said 306,000 in miscellaneous?
Yeah, that's what I saw. Here, thanks, Lindsay, but I think I can. It was either in the I'm not sure that the summary necessarily coincided with what I got out of the 352-page budget either. But, yeah. Well, at one place you have 150,000 for contingency fund,
Mm-hmm.
and then,
That's in
didn't
the council
see-
budget.
pardon me?
The 150 is in the council budget.
Can I ask a question real quick to our finance officer
Yeah,
while you guys are looking up your facts and figures? Mr. Ainsley, is there anything that would stop us, since this is a 5-year allocation, of just allocating this year and making sure we can allocate it into the budgets in the prior 4 years?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You could give us direction to include it in future years, but I don't believe you would actually have the legal authority to ensure that's done unless you enter into a contract that would have that. And not to throw our city attorney under the bus, but I think that's correct unless our attorney corrects me on that. But if that's what the council's desire would be, I would imagine we would be able to put together a contract or a MOU or something with them.
I think it'd be much easier to find $25,000 this year than finding $125,000 this year. So, Mr. Landine, if you don't mind answering that question.
Well, I agree with what the finance officer stated. You can't bind your future selves to appropriate the money. If you don't appropriate the money next year, the sports commission wouldn't have any recourse against you. However, if you directed that it be put in, I think they would include it in the budget for next year. I assume that was part of the reason why Alderman Stroman, recognizing that you couldn't bind the appropriation for future years, is trying to find all of it in this year's budget. But
If we signed a 5-year contract with them, starting this year at $25,000, could we bind future budgets with that?
well,
Because I know we do a lot of multi-year contracts.
yes, and a lot of them, they should have language in them. Honestly, generally we honor our contractual commitments, but if you don't appropriate the money for it, then the contract would cease. It's the same as with the state. You can enter into a multi-year contract. Generally, we honor those, but technically you would not have to appropriate the money for it. But it would definitely be included in the budget if you had an agreement.
Thank you.
Mr. Roberts, may I?
Absolutely.
What I could do, just looking at the budget, one item in there that I thought we might take out would be, there's $50,000 allocated in the mayor's office budget for the vehicle for the mayor's office. The one we have is 11 years old, or going to be 11 years old, so we had 50,000 allocated to that. I think we could pass on that if we can just keep what we have right now, if that 50,000 would help. That's 2 years of the 5 years out of the mayor's office that I can think of. So I might recommend that and be willing to part with that to help with this effort. If that's Mr. Stroman and the seconder, I mean, that, trying to get to that dollar amount, it's really helpful. For starters, let me just say this, the Sports Commission appreciate the work. The fact that this is the first that I'm hearing about the Founding Five, and I'm the mayor and I've been putting the budget together for a couple of months now, it's kind of disappointing that you would think you'd give that information, then I could say yes or no, and then to bring it to the council meeting and kind of randomly pick things without some conversation about how that might impact, I think that would just be helpful to say, hey, how do we get $125,000 from this year's budget? And we can figure that out. Like I said, I could say from mayor's office, we'll give 50,000 for here. That might help us either determine where those funds can be used from, or what, but I want to be careful of our assumptions on something, because there's always a cost and effect to all this. So you, for example, you could be reducing the funding we have to other services, like to Elevate Rapid City. If that's what you want to do, then that means that we are giving that money to the Sports Commission. That's essentially the trade-off. So I would just say my impression is, how can we do this? And can we do it year by year over the 5 years? And we can work out some recommendations. You certainly can bring out, hey, what about this? What about that? I think that would be appropriate. But I think it would be helpful for the whole staff that we just ask the questions of where we're taking that from, just to make sure there's no unintended consequences we didn't mean. So I will offer up 50,000 from the mayor's office as a part of that discussion. That gets you 2 years so far, if we want to discuss how that would go forward from here.
Mr. Stroman, do you want the floor again?
Sure. You know, I'd revise my motion if we could just do that and move ahead. If we would authorize $50,000 now, I'd make that motion. And then I'd also like to have us enter into an MOU or something with the city that, so it's on the table, and then we won't have anybody saying, well, I didn't hear about this before. Because I know that a lot of the council people have heard about it, and I thought that they had tried to get in with the mayor, but maybe they weren't able to because of timing. But I know this has been out front, and a lot of people have known about this, and I apologize if it just didn't work out for the schedules to get in to see the mayor. But
Mr. Stroman, I've been part of the discussions with the Sports Commission on the focus groups. I've certainly known about the effort, but the specific ask for $125,000, you're the first person in the entire city to mention that to me at this moment.
Okay.
So the effort, absolutely. The request, the specific ask was not presented. I certainly may have actually considered that as part of the discussion. That's why I'm bringing you 50,000 today. So certainly the effort for sure, but, and this is also transition time. So they're working on stuff as you get a new mayor, new council. I get that. So we give each other a lot of grace on this, but I think if that helps, that 50,000 gets us on a roll. And if the council agrees that this is a direction you want to go, then that MOU sounds like a good idea.
Mr. Mayor, you got the floor.
Well, I was going to bring up the same point that John did. I support the Sports Commission, and but I agree that we shouldn't have to try to pull that money out of other line items at this point in the budget. If we can get the 50,000 to get it going, I would support that.
Vicki, do you want to say something?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I had first hit my light because Director Davis wasn't in the room, and you mentioned the library, and I know that budget is very tight for her. I am aware of the sports complex too, and I do believe it's going to be a huge economic benefactor for the community. I've had the opportunity to meet with members of that group on potential locations. It's exciting for the city. I think that putting an effort forward to ensure, to give them the message that the city is behind this project is important. I would like to offer up $25,000 from my budget that would come out of my repair and demolition. That would lower my abatement budget from $150,000 to $125,000. We'll make that work for '24. I'd want it reinstated in '25, but that would then let us offer up $75,000, which is half of what they need for that 5-year commitment.
Kevin, do you still want the floor?
No, I'm sorry, I'm done, thank you.
Mr. Stroman, do you?
Well, thank you, Vicki. I appreciate that gesture, and Mayor also. I think that we are doing exactly what Ms. Fisher has said. We are sending a message of our support for this endeavor, and I would be pleased to get $75,000 towards that ask. And I would be content with that.
Anyone else want the floor? I think that was very nice of Ms. Fisher, but I'm worried about that because abatement's a big issue in Rapid City. I know that in Lance and myself's ward, I can think of 5 or 6 boarded up houses right now that I wish we knew something to do with. I just hate juggling it from one place to another, and then if we end up somewhere in the year where we need that money, then we're gonna have to find it somewhere else at that time. So I'm just a little bit concerned about that portion of it. I'm not concerned about the mayor's new car, but I am concerned about that portion of it.
Well, I drive my truck anyways. You know, this is a staff vehicle, but that's why I said it's optional. You're right. There's priorities. Thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. Any more, Mr. Stroman?
No, that's just my motion, and I'd like to call the question if we could.
So the motion on the floor, could you, because we went through a few, it should probably actually be a substitute motion because you had a motion before, so we should have somebody make a substitute motion on it and second it.
I substitute motion to 50,000 out of the mayor's budget and 25,000 from community development in support of the Founding Five and the Rapid City for the 2024 budget.
So we have a second. So we have a motion and we have a second. All in favor?
All right.
All opposed? Motion passes. That part of it. Now let's see what else we have.
Thank you, Vicki.
Lindsay, did you want back in?
Oh, no, I didn't.
Mr. Pettigrew?
Thank you, Chairman, President. I'd like us to have a discussion on this park ranger program. I'm not convinced, and hopefully when we're done here, you can convince me that that's a program that will provide the services I think that everyone thinks and hopes it will. I'm always cautious when a new program is implemented. I know it's been made clear this is a one-year trial period, but I know how government works. Once a program gets started, it's hard to pull it back and stop it and not keep it going. So that's a concern of mine. Some of you know I ride my bike to work every day, to work and back from work. I'm on that bike path often, and I see things happening on the bike path that most people don't because I'm there every day. And I spent quite a bit of time over the weekend Googling park ranger programs, and they all sound so warm and fuzzy, but I'm not convinced that's going to work. The proposal is for 4 park rangers, and we have 1,700 acres of park space. They're going to work in groups of 2, as I understand it. Years ago, the people on the bike path were just intoxicated and drunk, and I've been told by multiple law enforcement officers, those people you did not have to be concerned about because they were just intoxicated with alcohol. Today, a lot of the people on the bike path, the homeless, are on meth, on drugs. They carry knives, they carry guns. I had the privilege of riding with Jim Hansen on Saturday. We were called to a event, and when we got there, the medic was there sitting in his own van, not willing to get out because the gentleman was confronting him in a very aggressive nature. when Jim Hansen and another officer arrived, then all that emotion was directed towards those gentlemen. So I just have a hard time understanding how two park rangers that, as I understand it, don't have a lot of authority. They aren't going to carry weapons, which I think is a good thing. I just think these people are smart. They're going to understand that these people don't have any authority. What are they going to do? They're going to call the police. So I just think we're adding a step of what there. The police are still going to get called for a lot of these. As I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Hedrick, I think last year, Journey On saved the department maybe 7,000 calls of service. That's the number I've heard. And that's a good thing, but we've got this cycle going where 7,000, and they I don't know where they take them, detox. I suppose the next week the same person's arrested, or not arrested, but taken to detox. The next week the person's taken to detox. So we have a cycle, we have to stop the cycle. And having park rangers is not gonna stop that cycle. And from the council members I've talked to, they've all got a lot of questions. We really don't know a plan. We really don't know what the goal is. We don't have, at least I haven't heard it. So I'm just real slow on instituting this program, not knowing how it's all gonna work. I've been told in order for the park ranger program to work, they need 12 to 16 park rangers. I'm assuming these people will have 8 to 5 jobs. I don't know that. When I go through the park at 6 o'clock in the morning, there's a lot of violent things going on. And when I go through the park at 6:30 at night, I mean, I see all sorts of things that are violent. So where are these park rangers going to be? Are they going to work late? I just have a lot of questions, and I'm hoping someone from the council or the mayor's office can address a lot of that, because at this point in time, I would have a very hard time supporting a park ranger program. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mahar, you've got the...
Yes. I was kind of thinking the same lines that Rod is until I did my research this weekend and found so many cities in the country that these park rangers programs have been implemented and how happy the citizens are. We have to take care of the 99% of our citizens who love to use the parks. And I think the park ranger program will make the parks, make citizens feel safer in the parks. And it's not, you know, they're still gonna have to have law enforcement deal with those issues that Rod brought up. But what about, you know, if I'm walking my dogs by the disc golf over on the west side, twice now I've come across young people playing disc golf with a pit bull without a leash. Now, I'm not gonna call 911 about a pit bull without a leash, but the park ranger can write a citation. And so I think we've gotta create the safety for our residents so that they will utilize our parks. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. I guess before I respond, if any other council members have questions, then I can kind of do it all in one fell swoop.
Sounds good. So we'll go over to Councilwoman Seacrest.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too also share in Rod's concerns for the park ranger program. I believe that we need to further define the problem that we're trying to solve. We should have a job description to understand what it is that the duties and the roles of this potential position, to verify that we're not overlapping with existing programs and services in place. So I do commend Mayor Solomon, and I certainly appreciate the concept and bringing forward a new and innovative approach to address the behavioral challenges we're having and issues in the parks as it is. Just proposed under the Parks and Recreation as a solution to addressing significant behavioral concerns and other support of the 1,700 acres of parklands as I understand it, tasked with regulating rules and granted code enforcement authority. Just in my opinion, it's limited in what they're going to be able to accomplish with a staff of 4. I agree that this is going to be a significant effort that'd be needed, and I too was also out on the ride along this weekend and got to see firsthand our departments interfacing with the public in that way. It has the potential to add an entire new division to the city. I think that right now we're just at a time with rising increase in wages and expenses and services, and that we should be tightening our bootstraps to understand the impacts of the increase to the budget overall. I realize that this is a very small request in the scale of the budget, the overall budget, but I guess my other point was I do believe public safety is paramount and priority. We have a great police department, a well-funded department with exceptional individuals, and I just want to share that the compassion and the cultural sensitivity that I witnessed from our police department, our fire department, the mobile medic unit, the quality of life unit was just humbling, and they just do an exceptional job and serve our community with such compassion. I also question, here's my questions, I guess. How do you issue a code enforcement violation to a houseless person? And what happens when that violation is not paid or rectified? What kind of training would a park ranger be equipped with to handle drug and criminal activity that we're seeing on the streets? What safety precautions would be in place to protect them? And I just recently actually learned of, and I don't have this verified in any way, but I learned that one of our code enforcement officers recently resigned due to being attacked while on the job trying to issue a code enforcement violation. So I just think that this is potentially a safety concern to have individuals equipped with the right training. So I guess I just don't have answers to those thoughts and questions at this time to feel comfortable. So I also wanted to just, this might be cliche, but Albert Einstein once said that if I had 20 days to solve a problem, I would take 19 days to define it. And so if we could really clarify what problem it is that we're trying to address and to understand how we can best utilize our resources and potentially allocate funding to support that. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Pettigrew?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a few more comments. Again, given the 4 proposed rangers that would be hired, I mean, do the math. Who's going to be out there Saturday and Sunday? And I guess I'm more focused on what I see on the bike path. Thank you, Kevin. There are other things these park rangers would do, but it's been my perception, maybe I perceived this wrong, that their main purpose will be to somehow help us help with the homeless issue. So if they work 8-hour days, and I mean, things happen on weekends. That bulldog or whatever could be out there Saturday and Sunday. So I just don't see how the program is viable with what I've seen and read being implemented with the volume of people and the money that's being allocated for it. What I would like to see is possibly leave it in the budget, but let's get everyone, all the groups put together, and let's see what the plan is. When I say groups, it's law enforcement, it's code enforcement, it's Jeff's group, parks. Have me on there as a citizen who rides his bike every day. so you see my input, what people see, and we should get all the groups that are trying to assist us with the homeless, the churches that are feeding, and all those groups together, and let's come up with a plan. What's our goal as a city? We all want to work on it. We all want to clean it up, improve it, but I just have a hard time implementing another program when we don't know what the target is. That's where I'm coming from. And I would like us to leave it probably in the budget, but let's, I know in the budget there's some items the mayor has chosen not to act on, some appointments and that type of thing, but it's still in the budget. Why can't we do that with this item and put together a plan, a program, and an understanding of what the role will be and what our goal is? Right now I feel we're just throwing spaghetti at a wall, hoping it sticks and feel good about it, and I just can't do that. Thank you.
Councilman Roseland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm sure many of us on the council received many emails concerning the park ranger over the last couple of weeks. And those that emailed me, none were in favor of the park rangers because they're basically the unknown of what they do. I think if we had a little more education to the public, they may have a little more inclination to support this, but there's just basically hire 4 rangers and then what we're going to do with them. And basically, one of the suggestions was instead of hiring 4 new rangers, have a new quality of life unit officer in place rather than hiring another 4 rangers that really have no power at all. I yield. Thank you.
Finance Officer Ainsley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if all the council members are aware. I don't know if this was included in any of the notes that I sent out, but the proposed budget would be that those 4 individuals would be hired beginning in May. And so it's not that the 4 would be starting in January. And so there would be some time. We're not talking about just the next 2 or 3 months to define their job titles or their job descriptions or anything else. There still would be quite a bit of time until they would actually begin.
Thank you. Mr. Pettigrew.
Mr. President, thank you. If I may ask Don Hedrick a question, please.
As many as you want.
Don, a question I would have if I don't know what the math would be, money was given, 100,000, 200,000 to your department to hire additional officers, and I don't know all their acronyms for what you call these guys, for what Jim Hansen does. Would that be of more benefit than hiring 4 park rangers? And I've been told you're short officers. If you're going to hire an officer, you're going to put them on the street, and I get that. But would that be something to consider? Thank you.
Am I on now? Okay. Well, over the last couple of years, Rapid City, we fell into some of the nationwide trends that we've seen. Unfortunately, in some ways, we've witnessed this mass exodus of law enforcement officers out of the profession across the nation. And unfortunately, that hit us here too as well. Many communities besides Rapid City are experiencing an increase in homelessness, and it's caused many communities besides us to try to figure out other ways to handle some lower level calls for service and such. I can tell you that if you're going to lean on the police department alone to address homelessness, that's not going to be a recipe for success. We simply can't be everywhere at once with a social issue. You know, we have tried the quality of life unit. We have had many successes with that program. But, you know, they're not social workers either. And I think what we really probably need to do at some point in the near future is pull together for a collaborative community approach to address this issue. You know, I've been there in the middle of the night, standing there trying to figure out what to do with somebody that wasn't breaking a law. And I can tell you that we could use more support in that area for sure. So I think some of these conversations were, does it, just having somebody in the park as a deterrent factor, does that always have to be a police officer? Especially sometimes when folks maybe aren't breaking a particular law. We've witnessed programs like that work. For example, our Downtown Ambassador program. Those aren't gun-wearing, uniformed, policemen or security guards. They're simply sometimes an elderly person in a polo shirt, and we've noticed that people act differently when they come around. They're not there to wrestle bad guys to the ground. They're there to be eyes and ears, and they're there to be a deterrent. I've watched it myself. I've stood over by the across from the ice arena there, and I've watched one of the folks in the polo walk up, and they just stood there across the street from a group. Maybe they were drinking, maybe they weren't, I don't know. But the group dispersed when they saw the individual with the polo, because they equated them to, well, if we're breaking the law, we need to leave because they're going to call the police department. Probably saved us a call for service. Maybe not, I don't know. But I've noticed, and it's not just me, there probably are studies that exist out there showing that somebody that looks somewhat official can have an effect on crime, a deterrent factor, so to speak. So, we could probably throw 100 police officers at the issue of homelessness and not solve it. We're going to do our part. We're going to continue to be involved when folks are out breaking a law of some kind. We've spent a lot of time in the downtown core over this last summer, downtown bike path, places where we have had upticks in crime. And I think that's had an effect. We're going to continue with that program as best we can. It was something we weren't able to stand up when we were incredibly short-staffed over the last few years, but we're bouncing back from our short-staffedness. We still have many folks, even though we've hired, we still have many folks in training. If you're, I probably went off on a tangent here, but if you're asking my opinion, it seems worth a shot at trying. Maybe we could identify something very low level. Maybe we look at, they won't be able to be out there every single day. That's very accurate, but maybe we could figure out what the peak times for issues are and focus on that for a short time frame. And if it goes well, we keep looking at it. And if it doesn't, this is a trial program. And I would really encourage us to spend a little bit of time looking at what other cities are doing. We're not the first city in the country to implement a program like this. I believe other cities have seen some of the successes of the deterrent factor that I was talking about. So I don't know if any of that's helpful. I do applaud the mayor for trying to address a problem in a little bit different of a way. And if there are any other questions, sorry for taking so much time on that.
Councilman Stroman?
Thank you, Chair. May I address Chief Hedrick also?
You may.
Chief, we used to have a bicycle patrol. Do we still have that? And the other question, I guess, is how would you see us establishing this presence if we had a presence in the parks? Would it be vehicles with insignias on them, or would they be on bicycle? Or I'm just wondering how that would work, or if they would have rangers or four-wheelers, or. Thank you.
How about now? Okay, so help me out. What was the first question again?
Bicycle patrol.
Okay, yes, we do have bicycle patrols. I will tell you that a couple years ago, when we were 34 officers short, some of those proactive activities took a little bit of a pause, particularly because at the same time, not only were we short, but we saw this spike in violence that we were dealing with. We simply did not have the resources to be out every single day on a bike. They were focused on answering calls for service. So as I acknowledged, our street crimes unit, our daytime street crimes unit, they do utilize bicycles. They do utilize foot patrol. They do utilize our regular patrol vehicles as well. But it's a proactive unit that we were able to stand up again this summer from being more closer to our fully staffed numbers. And they're not tied to the radio. They're a proactive unit that hits up hot spots and tries to address issues that are being seen in our community. Downtown core and some of our parks and bike path were an area there. And the second question, I should have wrote it down. Oh, how are we going to operate with vehicles and such? I think a lot of that still needs to be worked out. I do believe that there are multiple ways they could get around in a safe manner, and we could probably even take a look at what some other cities are doing to utilize that. But currently, we do have ways to access the bike path for safety purposes, and there are multiple ways that could be done.
Thank you.
Park and Rec.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add on to what the chief was mentioning about this program. I don't think anyone can make a claim that this is going to end homelessness or going to solve the problem on its own, but it's one more piece that we can use to try to address some of these issues. And in the proposed budget, there are funds that are in the budget for vehicles and e-bikes, thinking that would be the most effective way for these rangers to patrol primarily the Greenway area. It is something that's going to be new, but it's not new across the country. It's just new here. This is something that other park agencies have used for quite a number of years. And we've been talking about this with the PD now for several years, about how this could certainly help them. I know that their recruitment numbers are coming back, but as the chief mentioned, a lot of these infractions, if you will be some of the lower level things. People that are just traveling through and are interested in being safe in a park. They can see a uniformed presence there, a positive presence. And they are just a radio call away from getting uniformed officers down there if they need to be there. I think it's something that's new, and it's kind of out of the box for us, but I think it's something that is certainly worth exploring.
Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you for the discussion. Obviously, it's been a great community discussion. I've received a lot of feedback on this. Majority of my feedback has been positive. I've certainly had my fair share of detractors on this. I appreciate the chiefs as well as the parks director weighing in on it, because the idea of it is pretty simple. This is the mission statements: to support a positive and safer park space for everyone to enjoy. That's what you want. That is the objective that we would all want. The thing about adding park rangers to the mix is, rather than, we could just try to get more police officers out there, but it's good to have different levels of authority doing different things. We have parking enforcement officers that are doing that. They're not necessarily, everywhere else, but they can write you a ticket if you are parking wrong or if you overextend in your parking. We have code enforcement officers. They have their things. This is another extension of that. Here's the philosophy behind it: is you don't wait till something's big to address it. If you tolerate the little things, they will turn into big things. So we're talking about vandalism, and to think that this is purely about homelessness really misses the mark. It's not really about that. It is about any illegal activity. So whether you're a teenage kid with a bunch of friends vandalizing a park, that's a problem. Whether you're somebody who has an off-leash pit bull at a disc golf course, that's a problem. Whether you're somebody who is doing drugs in our park, that's a problem. Now, this park ranger is not necessarily going to intervene on all the violent things, neither do the mobile medic. Doesn't mean the mobile medic doesn't have a purpose. They're not supposed to address all of that. That's why they contact the sworn law enforcement officer, just as anybody else. Just as when you and I are enjoying the parks and we see something illegal, it's not up to us to go address that. It's up to us to see it and contact somebody. Or we can pretend it never happens, never address it, and then someday we wonder what happened to our parks and why did all this illegal activity start happening in our 1,700 acres of parks. The idea is this is a pilot program, meaning we try it, I say 12 to 18 months. If it doesn't work, then we will move on. That's the difference. This is not a permanent program. We will evaluate it. Obviously, there's a lot of attention on it. It is meant to be safe for everybody, including our homeless folks. There are many homeless folks who obey the law. To say they all don't obey the law just because they're enjoying our parks, they're allowed to have a picnic in our park just as any of us are. So it's for them as well. It's for all of us to enjoy. But if you are doing illegal activities in our parks, I want you to know that that won't be tolerated. And so that is for everyone. So that's essentially, it's a broken windows theory. It is saying we have a number of issues in our parks. Now, by the way, the germ of this idea began a couple of years ago when, as a council member, I received a lot of calls on increased illegal activity being witnessed in the parks. Now, not just our downtown parks per se, those are constant, but also in my area was Sioux Park and Canyon Lake Park. And there were a lot. So what I had to do was, that was a challenge. So I contacted our chief, said, Chief, what can we do to get more patrols in our parks? Because we're having harassment of female joggers in our parks. We're having drug use in our parks. We're having off-leash dogs that are dangerous in our parks. We have people ripping up soccer fields or playing fields in Sioux Park. We have graffiti in our parks. We're investing in tennis courts, and we're hoping that nobody does anything to there. All of these things are happening in addition to, yes, the other kind of stuff that we see in our parks along the bike path. And the chiefs, I said, what can we do to get more patrols? And he's like, I wish I could say I could just add more people to the mix, but if I say yes to that, what about the violent crime over here, or the violent crime around the rest of the city, not even including our park space? So this is designed to really pressure off of our police department. It's a cost-effective way. The idea is really deterrence is number one. And that includes public safety. And if you see something, yeah, those ambassadors, by the way, it works downtown. I've seen it. I work downtown. I walk downtown all the time. When they're around, behavior changes because they know they're going to call the cops if there's illegal behavior. But a lot of them are also friendly with our ambassadors. So people give them high fives and say hello because they're friendly. But I think there's a positive aspect to this role as well, and that's education, looking after our wildlife, our natural areas, making sure they're supporting parks. If there's events, they can provide eyes and ears. In terms of scheduling, I think looking at peak times, perhaps it is 7 days a week. But you know, those are innovative ways, but you're not gonna sit up here and talk about the hours that every single member of the city operations work. You should know that the idea is that we want the parks to be safer. And so after 2 years and after talking to Chief Hedrick about this, after talking to Director Beegler as a council member, these are the calls that you're going to get as new council members. And those of you who've had it, you've dealt with these issues. So I agreed to start small. So 4 is not enough. You are correct. That's why it's called a pilot program. So it's a lot as difficult to close shop if it doesn't work or change course. And the fact is, after talking to Chief and after talking to Parks Director, after talking and learning from other communities, it's not a new idea. We initially kind of thought of an ambassador programs for the park, but looked at what other communities were doing, and we said, oh, this park ranger thing that houses within the parks division, it's not going to prevent homelessness. What I hope is that it's going to prevent crime. And that's going to be tough to measure, to say what crime didn't happen, except that you will know, you will feel better when someone with an official presence is walking through our parks. So the fact of the matter is, there's a challenge. I guess I could sit up here and do nothing and have a really smooth budget process with you, but instead I presented you with an idea, and I'm waiting for a better idea. I'm saying this is an idea worth piloting. If you disagree, that's fine. But at least I put it out there on the table that our parks are very important. It's part of what makes Rapid City special is our green space, our parks, the tragic events of the flood. The beauty of that is the beauty that we have in our park space. And I want everybody to feel like they can enjoy it. And if you don't feel safe in your parks, that's a problem. These parks belong to all the people of Rapid City. All those who obey the law are welcome. And I always say everyone's welcome in Rapid City, but crime is not. That includes our parks. This is not intended to be a police state. If it was going to be a police state, I suppose I'd have cameras everywhere and put police officers everywhere. This is a little different touch. It's going to be housed in the Parks Department in cooperation with the Police Department. We're going to learn lessons along the way, but the fact of the matter is, I think it's a low investment to see if it's worth a shot. Now, you know, that, again, I put this in your hands. It's an idea put in your hands. I get it. If you're like, hey, not right now, let's study it and bring it back next year, I could understand that too. But I'm telling you, I think there is a need for it. And I don't want to wait until a catastrophe happens in our parks to bring this forward again. I'd rather we be proactive and help prevent things before they happen. And I think deterrence is a big part of this. Education is a big part of this. And service to our citizens is a big part of this. So went on a spiel there. But I think it's good feedback. You should ask those questions. I appreciate those questions. And those are concerns. But I want a safer and more positive park experience for everybody. That's the actual outcome. If we have a better idea on how to get that, I'm all ears. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion on this or a motion or? Go ahead, Mr. Stroman.
I'll move to.
There you go.
Thank you, Chair. I'll move to approve the pilot program for the park rangers.
So we have a motion by Councilman Stroman and I think a second by Councilman Bieberdorf. All in favor?
No, I was in the queue and you didn't call on me before.
Oh,
Mr. Stroman.
sorry, I didn't see you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. It was mentioned that this is a very small chunk of the budget. Well, $400 and some thousand is never a small chunk in this budget. That's my concern. I do believe the mayor is on track with we need to try different things, and this may be one of the things that will work. My only concern about so many of these things that we do is, and it doesn't matter whether it's a project on CIP or it is some other pet project that comes down the pike. If there's advocacy behind the scenes, it tends to happen and get funded. If it doesn't seem to have the right champion, it just languishes and it gets pushed back for years even, whether it's a street or, okay, take for instance the park purchase plan. We talked to those people in South Valley Drive 3 years ago about purchasing land when we decided not to allow them to expand that trailer court. Nothing has happened with that. That money's never been budgeted as far as I'm concerned. Nobody's been advocating for it. I keep bringing it up to certain individuals. It never goes anywhere. That land could probably be purchased with this much money, and that's a very tangible thing we do for those citizens in that part of town. We've got other people that, for instance, have been annexed over the years in that same area. They're not allowed services because the road simply isn't wide enough. We haven't built a turnaround for the garbage trucks or whatever, and these are things we need to address. And I get the calls about them all the time. Lindsay's going to start getting the calls about them all the time, if she hasn't already. I'm sure she has. And so my only problem with supporting these, whether it's this or the Sports Commission, which I also support, is, you know, there's other things that need to be supported too. And maybe maybe I shouldn't be asking for anything and have somebody else ask and it'll get funded. But we have to be realistic. You've got to support more than just your pet projects, even if you don't agree with them. I don't play tennis. I haven't played tennis since high school. I supported that. I did not play baseball. I supported that. There's all these things that come down the road, and people need to think a little more broad-minded, that it may not be for you, but it's for all of us. And I agree with Jason when he says that. We're trying to build a better community for everybody. So let's just keep in mind, there are things that have been in the works for years that we need to start making happen. Because the people are getting really kind of fed up, I'll be honest with you. And the purchase of that parkland, for instance, is one of them. I would like to see the city, myself, by that corner where MG Oil was before we end up with another holiday station on it. These are the kind of things the city can do to shape the environment and make it a better downtown, but we're not moving forward on those. It just sits there. And so, yeah, I'll support these things, but I also want people to be open-minded, and when an idea that comes forward that you may not share the vision with, start investigating it and start understanding that down the road this is going to have great payoff and payback, and it's an investment you make. So I just wanted to make that comment before we go voting on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate all the comments. I want to remind the council, you know, this budget isn't specifically my budget, it's our budget. I took your feedback, all of you, I think, pretty much gave me feedback to put in this budget. It's not even exactly how I would draft my own personal favorites or anything else. For example, arts and culture, we're funding that at a higher level than I think we ever have in terms of total dollars. A lot of that is championed by Mr. Evans. So you know, you should know that he championed that, and that's put in the budget the way it is. Many of you on the homeless services or the crisis services, that's put in there, you champion that. So I included that in there, and I felt like, well, if you want to debate it out together, that's one thing. But I just want to just to remind you that I present a budget trying to take in inputs, obviously, from the department directors and the previous administration, the community input that I got I talked to thousands and thousands of citizens last few months. I can dare say I kind of have a pretty good feel on what they're thinking. But ultimately, you, the elected officials representing them. And I appreciated each of you doing this. That's why the budget is the way it is, that it's trying to balance all of our priorities and not just mine. Mine are certainly in here. Public safety is obviously a big priority. Mine's not my only priority, but it's a high priority for me. But a lot of you have various priorities that you're here to champion for. And I think all of you have. You indicated various things that you're interested in, and you still continue to do that, whether it's our capital improvement projects or every council meeting, you're championing something. So just want to remind you that this budget's reflective of our shared priorities, and that your input's heard. Obviously, you know, now's the time to make any tweaks to that together if needed. But thought I'd throw that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Sechrest?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mayor Solomon, for the explanation. I really appreciate the additional information. I definitely have a little bit of a level of comfort knowing that I certainly have heard many of the concerns that are brought forward and aware of some of the issues outside of just homelessness. So I apologize. I didn't mean to give in my impression that I felt like this was just serving the homeless community. I do realize there are a lot of issues. I realize there are a lot of agencies servicing many of these same issues. And so I would I hope that we can come together as a group and just take a look at what community services are out there, where there might be overlap and where efficiencies could be found. I also was just curious, what came to mind when you were speaking is just, if this program isn't initiated until May, what type of budget would we be looking at on a 12-month schedule? You know, this could be substantial impact. And so if you have any clarification on that. I did also have a couple other minor questions, but not related to the park ranger, so I'll wait on those. But
Okay. Well, I can answer that question if that's all right, Mr. Roberts.
You can.
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. So let's say this is funded halfway through 2024, then that means 2025 is roughly double that, right? That's what we're looking at. If we don't, and then after that, we'll evaluate it. So it is a bit of a, hey, this is going to impact us not just in 2024, but we won't have enough data to really say whether 2025 should go, because I think 12 to 18 months, a year from now, we'll be evaluating whether it works or not for the 2025 budget, but we'll just have a few months of data. Not sure that's enough to go on per se. So that's a good point you bring up. It is, I think, tying us up in 2025 as well in our budget. Fair. And you said you had a couple of other minor questions not related?
yes, I do. I would support giving this a pilot program and seeing how it goes. I am concerned about growing a new division within the city, the impacts of that, not decreasing other budgets. If we're saving response times through other sources, then is it appropriate at some point to start decreasing from a different agency, or is it just always a growth experience there? But what my other question was regarding the 24 budget. I guess I've been made aware that we are waiting on a wage study, results of a wage study for union. Is that correct? And so is that anticipated increase to the wages already budgeted in for 24 in this 20% increase to the overall budget?
Mr. President, may I?
You may.
The wage study, no, we don't have the full results of that yet, and we hate to put a dollar figure or a percentage around that and think it's just anticipated that it's going to happen that way. So I anticipate when that comes, the results of that study, that I'll come back to this council for a decision. I don't know if the finance director may have more to add to that, but that's the impression that I have.
Mr. Ainsley?
Thank you, Mr. President. In regards to what you would or should anticipate total cost being in 2025, the total budget for 2024, starting in May, includes $110,000 for machinery and equipment, so essentially the vehicles that the two pairs would be using, so you could take that off as far as 2025, because we would not anticipate purchasing equipment for the second year. So when you look at 2025 and total estimated cost for the same four for the entire year would be right in the range of about $380,000. And then as far as what the mayor said is absolutely correct in regards to the wage study, we are currently still in the midst of that wage study, so we do not have the final results. So whatever wage adjustments would ultimately be negotiated, that has not been included yet in this proposed budget. We would anticipate coming to the council at some point once negotiations are completed with the unions for probably a supplemental appropriation for any adjustments that would be made in the wages for the ASME union.
Thank you for that. I appreciated that. And then I was also curious, I know I've heard of a PD remodel that maybe got pushed from CIP and that we're anticipating for, I believe, the public safety building. Is that something that we also might be seeing in this?
I believe I've worked very closely with our sheriff on this and the county, and we've been able, I think, to adjust the plans on that to where the cost to the city is not as drastic, and those are still being discussed, but bottom line is they're looking to move the public safety building into the county administration building when they move out, and my preference is we'd stay where we're at and maybe just add a floor or some minor reconstruction to expand into the administration building if that's needed, but I did not want to pony up to $9 million or whatever it was going to be. That's not going to happen. So we worked on that, and those are discussions that you have on a lot of things, but we don't have the funds for that, so I didn't know how we were going to pay for it. So that's the bottom line there.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Appreciate that. My only other comment I really have is that I believe we need to increase our priority to infrastructure. I know you mentioned this in your budget address too, appreciate that. And you're looking for potential funding sources and what we can potentially anticipate as a revenue source. I think it's unfortunate that the investment revenues that were generated, which sounds like an awesome opportunity that maybe was a new thing for the city, was absorbed into the general fund. I feel like we need to hold the line on opportunities like this and look for using those funds to potentially fund infrastructure and get ahead of development. Just with the interest rates the way they are, if you have cash on upfront to front the cost, for example, we just went through a TIF application revision this morning that included the cost of a booster station financed over a 15-year period was actually just as expensive to finance as it was to purchase the entire booster station. So $7 million could be substantial for the entire community, impact every ward in this community, and our housing shortages and a ton of opportunity there. So I hope that we as a council can think about opportunities where if we are able to utilize additional funds to funnel that into infrastructure. So that's a priority for me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And did we have some kind of a motion on the table? Because we kind of went on a big tangent for a while. So
I move to approve the Park Ranger program, but I don't even know if we have to.
we don't have to make a motion to approve it. It's already in the budget. So unless there's a motion to defund it, which,
I move that no one move to defund it.
okay. Any more discussion? Mr. Pettigrew.
Like the ever-ready battery, I don't stop talking. I would just ask that with the Park Ranger program that, and I'm not saying it's not happening, but let's just think it through, give careful thought. Let's get all the people that are involved in this, that are going to be participating, that are going to be overseeing it in the same room, and let's have a plan. Because I just don't feel right now that we're comfortable with a plan or what the plan is. And we don't need to dissect how many staples they use or pencils they buy. That's not where I'm going. But I just think someone made the comment, figure out the peak hours. Where are those people going to be used to the city's best advantage to make our parks better for everybody? Thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion on any other items? If not, we have to decide if we're going to vote to approve this budget or if we're going to have another meeting to discuss more items in the future. So I'd look for either a motion.
Mr. President, I would make a motion that we approve this budget.
Second.
We got a motion to approve by Mr. Mahar and a second by Mr. Stroman. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion passes with 1 no. Motion to adjourn? Have a motion and a second. All in favor? It wasn't as painful as I thought it would be.
Good job, thank you.